If you live with Shih Tzus long enough, you eventually realize their food journey is never as simple as choosing between dry food or wet food. I used to believe it was straightforward, just pick a good kibble and be done with it. But after raising many different Shih Tzus, each with their own quirks and sensitivities, I learned that no single diet fits them all. Some of my dogs thrived on dry food, clean teeth, solid stools, good energy. Others began vomiting yellow bile after a week of kibble, or stopped drinking water, or simply refused to eat. On the other hand, some adored wet food but later developed dental issues, smelly breath, or inflamed gums. That's when it finally clicked for me. Shih Tzus are not like other breeds. Their small bodies, short muzzles, crowded teeth, and sensitive digestive systems make them react very differently to each type of food. Anyone who's owned Shih Tzus for years knows the truth. They don't need the ideal diet according to books. They need the diet that works for their individual body. What years of experience taught me wasn't a universal formula, but the ability to observe checking their teeth, monitoring their stool, watching how much water they drink, noticing changes in energy or breath. The food that keeps them comfortable is the right food. And to understand which direction to take, the first thing any owner needs to truly grasp is the role of dry food. Part 1. Dry food beneficial, but not every Shih Tzu can handle it at first glance. Dry food seems like the perfect solution: clean, convenient, easy to store, easy to measure, and widely recommended. When I first started raising Shih Tzus, I thought feeding high-quality kibble was all that mattered. But I learned quickly that with a brachycephalic breed like this, dry food can be both a blessing and a challenge. Its biggest strength is obvious: it helps maintain better dental health. Across the Shih Tzus I've raised, those who ate mainly kibble had cleaner teeth, less plaque buildup, and fresher breath. The crunch genuinely helps keep their teeth in better condition, especially as they get older. But the drawbacks are real as well. Dry food has low moisture, and Shih Tzus already tend to drink less water than they should. After several days of exclusive kibble, some of my dogs developed dry mouths, hard stools, and occasional morning bile vomit, all signs of dehydration or mild stomach irritation. Others refused to chew at all, swallowing the kibble whole, which led to gum irritation, gassiness, or choking risks. Some simply lost interest over time and needed flavor changes or moisture added. Dry food isn't bad, but to make it work for a Shih Tzu, you have to watch carefully. Are they actually chewing? Are they drinking enough water? Does their stool stay consistent? Does their breath change? Are they showing early signs of discomfort? Even a small change can mean the food isn't the right fit. Sometimes I had to switch to a smaller kibble size, choose a softer formula, or mix in a little warm water or broth. Other times, I reduced the kibble portion and balanced it with wet food. The truth is simple. Dry food is not universally good or bad. It's just not suitable for every Shih Tzu. And as a longtime owner, your responsibility isn't to force them into a feeding style you prefer, but to discover the version that keeps them comfortable, healthy, and happy. Part 2. Wet food great, but only when used right. If dry food taught me that Shih Tzus can be surprisingly picky, wet food taught me that they can also be surprisingly dramatic. Almost every Shih Tzu I've owned has reacted to wet food in the same predictable way: eyes widen, tail wags. And suddenly the bowl that was ignored 30 seconds ago becomes the most exciting thing in the world. There's no denying it, wet food is more aromatic, tastier, and easier to chew. For many Shih Tzus, it's the closest thing to a guaranteed meal. But just because they love it doesn't mean it's always the best choice. Wet food's strongest advantage is moisture, for a breed that naturally drinks too little water. The high water content is a blessing. I've seen Shih Tzus with dry stools, mild constipation, or morning bile vomiting improve almost instantly once wet food was added. It also saves older dogs trouble when dental issues show up, or when chewing becomes painful. Wet food is often the only option they can comfortably manage. However, years of raising this breed have shown me the hidden side of wet food as well. It doesn't clean the teeth at all. And if used as the sole diet for too long, Shih Tzus can develop plaque, gum irritation, and bad breath much faster. There were phases where my dogs were so obsessed with wet food that they refused anything else. And while it made feeding easy, it made dental care much harder. Another thing people don't always realize is that wet food spoils quickly. Once opened, it needs refrigeration. And even then, its freshness window is short. Shih Tzus have sensitive stomachs. A can left out too long, or reheated too many times, can cause digestive upset. I learned to portion properly, store correctly, and throw away leftovers even when it felt wasteful. With this breed, better safe than sorry is more than a saying. It's a guideline. And then there's the issue of cost. Feeding wet food exclusively can become expensive, especially when you're choosing the higher quality brands most Shih Tzus require. Over the years, I found that my dogs did best when wet food wasn't treated as a primary diet, but rather as a tool for hydration, for appetite stimulation, for variety, or for senior dogs needing softer meals. What experience taught me is this wet food is wonderful when it's part of a thoughtful routine. It helps with hydration, digestion, and enthusiasm during meals. But it works best when balanced with something else: dental treats, brushing, or even a portion of dry food if your dog can tolerate it. Wet food isn't the hero or the villain. It's simply one piece of the puzzle. And once you learn how your Shih Tzu responds to it, you can use it the way longtime owners do: strategically, carefully, and always with your dog's long-term comfort in mind. Part 3. Finding the balance that actually works. After many years of living with Shih Tzus, I realized that the real question was never dry or wet. The real question was always, what combination keeps this particular dog comfortable? And that answer changes from dog to dog, sometimes even from year to year. There were times when dry food worked perfectly until a dental issue appeared. There were times when wet food kept them happy until plaque started building faster than I could brush. And there were months when mixing both felt like the only sensible solution. Balance, with Shih Tzus, is not a formula, it's a conversation. You watch how they react, you adjust, and they tell you whether you were right through their energy, their stools, their coat, their mood, and sometimes even their breath. Over time, I learned to read these signals better than any feeding chart on a bag of dog food. Some Shih Tzus do best with kibble in the morning and wet food at night. For others, a small spoon of wet food mixed into dry is enough to keep meals interesting without creating dental problems. Senior dogs often need mostly wet food for comfort, while younger dogs might thrive on mostly dry. And then there are those sensitive souls, the ones who force you to redesign their meals completely because their stomach or teeth or appetite refuses to follow any standard plan. The beauty of this breed is that they're honest. When the balance is right, they show it immediately: steady energy, clean stools, eagerness at mealtime, no vomiting, no paw licking, no mysterious tummy grumbles at night. When it's wrong, they also show it maybe subtly at first, but always clearly if you know them well. Sometimes the fix is simple. Add water to the kibble. Switch to a softer, dry formula. Rotate wet food flavors to avoid boredom. Other times, the fix requires patience, like trying several brands until one finally agrees with their digestion. One thing I've learned is that a perfect diet doesn't exist. What exists is your dog's perfect diet, the one that keeps them healthy without stressing their stomach. The one that fits their teeth, their age, their lifestyle, and even their personality. And Shih Tzus definitely have personalities when it comes to food. Some are selective, some are dramatic, some are enthusiastic, and some act like the world is ending if you change anything in their bowl. The key is not forcing them into your preference, but shaping their meals around their needs. In the end, balance isn't about choosing sides. It's about creating a routine where your Shih Tzu can thrive. Dry food for dental health, wet food for hydration and pleasure, adjustments for age and comfort, observations for long-term well-being. When you stop thinking in absolutes and start thinking in responses, their responses feeding becomes less of a chore and more of a partnership. And once you find that balance, even if it takes time, Your Shih Tzu will tell you you've gotten it right in the quiet, reliable way they always communicate by being comfortable, by being eager to eat, and by simply being themselves. After so many years raising Shih Tzus, I've come to realize that feeding them is less about choosing the right food and more about learning who they are. Every Shih Tzu I've had has taught me a slightly different lesson. One needed extra moisture. One needed extra crunch. One needed small meals throughout the day. And one needed a completely different routine every time the seasons changed. None of them followed a rule book. And eventually I stopped expecting them to. What mattered wasn't the dry food or the wet food, it was the way each dog responded to what I put in the bowl. Their bodies speak long before their behavior does. A healthy Shih Tzu shows it in the shine of their coat, the softness of their belly, the steadiness of their energy, the cleanliness of their teeth, and the calm in their sleep. When something is off, you see it just as clearly: loose stools, stubborn refusals to eat, scratching, licking, vomiting, or simply a look that tells you they're uncomfortable. These signals are the real guide, not the packaging of a food brand. Over time, feeding becomes an agreement between you and the dog, a quiet understanding built through trial, error, and a lot of patience. You start recognizing when they need a little more hydration, when their teeth could use some crunch, when their appetite needs something warm and aromatic, or when their stomach needs a break. And with Shih Tzus, those small adjustments matter more than any strict diet plan. They're sensitive dogs. They thrive when you pay attention. I've learned to stop chasing the idea of the best food. There is no universal answer, no magic formula that works for every Shih Tzu. Instead, there is the dog right in front of you, their habits, their quirks, their reactions, and the relationship you build over time. Feeding them becomes part of that relationship. It becomes a way of saying, I see you. I hear what your body is telling me. And it'll adjust, again and again, if that's what you need. And when you reach that point when meals go smoothly, when digestion is stable, when they eat with comfort instead of struggle, you realize something simple but important. You didn't just figure out the food, you figured out them. And for a breed that bonds so deeply with its owners, that understanding is worth far more than any perfect recipe. If you ever feel unsure, remember this: your Shih Tzu will tell you what works. All you have to do is watch, listen, and be willing to adapt. In the end, the best diet is the one that keeps your dog healthy, happy, and completely at ease in the world they share with you.